Welcome to Steward Leaders, a podcast for leaders who understand that our leadership is not about us. I'm Eric Alexander. In these conversations, we explore what it means to lead as stewards, living our leadership for something bigger than ourselves. Listeners, thanks for joining us today, and hello to you as well, Chris, Kelley, and Byron Earnheart. I'm so grateful you've both made time for a steward leadership conversation.
Oh, what a missed it. Yeah.
And now y'all are talking over each other. Is this going to be the experience through the whole thing?
Probably so.
Maybe not.
Okay. All right. Well, listeners, you're going to enjoy this. These two guys are fun. They're both with the Barret School of Banking in Memphis, and I forget exactly when we've gotten acquainted. It's kind of strange. We've been collaborating here for a couple of years, and we've yet to meet in person, although we're going to solve that come May. Let me tell you a little bit about the Barret School of Banking. They'll tell a little bit more along the way. We're not mainly here to talk about that today, but it's an important part and an ancillary support for the topics we have. They're all about training community bankers, training leaders for community banks. And there's lots of webinars, valuable content they put on there. They've got a podcast, the Main Street Banking Podcast that Byron does. You've had me on there as a guest a couple times. I've enjoyed that. They've got a School of Banking. That's their flagship. It's in Memphis in May. I look forward to being there as a newbie for part of the faculty this year. Thank you all for that invitation. I'm really looking forward to that. Chris is the executive director and president. Neat man, family man, and some pro baseball back in your past. Am I right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was fired by the former governor of Texas, George Bush, because he was the general manager of the Texas Rangers when I was playing in their minor league organization. So yes, I did play a few years of minor league baseball with the Rangers. No, it didn't go very well, and hence I've been a banker for 30 years now, I guess. So right. There you go.
Well, that's making a little more sense of some of the background behind you there. So
yes.
Chris, really grateful you're here. And Byron's a programming director for the Barret School. And Byron's also a musician, father. These both guys are both fathers. Byron, anything you want to say?
Yeah, my baseball career ended when they finally learned how to throw curveballs at me. Literally, not the metaphorical curveball, literally curveballs. One of my best friends in high school was the pitcher, and he just would smile. He says, I'm going to throw 3 curveballs. And I swung 3 times and sat back down. No, musician. I guess my failed career, in addition to baseball, was I'm really a guitar player, a blues guitar player that just.
And there it is in the background, too.
Yeah, that just uses banking to pay the bills. So, okay. Yeah, that's my background there as well.
That's fine. Well, let's jump into a couple of questions. We're here talking about stewardship, talking about leadership, and the Barret School of Banking is all about developing and growing bankers, growing bank leaders. What do leaders in community banks need to do to grow in their own leadership and also to grow their folks? And of course, talk a little bit about the Barret resources, but talk beyond that too. What are things they need and their folks need to help them grow as leaders?
Byron, you want to jump in so we're not talking over each other?
And go. Now, one of the things we talk about, Eric, is at the Barret School, and one of the things we really focus on and a governing principle is what we call the holistic banker. Mm-hmm. And as you know, being a banker yourself and numbers guy, banking is one of those industries where you've got to think out of both sides of your brain. You've got to be able to crunch the numbers, do the finance, do the bond durations, yields, and all that kind of stuff. But you've got to have the emotional intelligence in order to lead a team, understand your role in the community and things like that. But in order to get there, you've got to understand yourself. You've got to understand that emotional intelligence, that self-awareness of your strengths, your weaknesses, understanding how to use the numbers, how to deploy that analysis. And in our view, looking at it is, and I would say this for any industry, is just being self-aware about who you are. Now, that leads into some deep philosophy of who am I? But you got to do that. That's the starting place. You can learn the technical side of your industry in banking, but you've got to start with understanding who you are. All right, Chris, I'm done. We don't want to stop. What do you?
Well,
Well, you know,
can I comment
Oh,
on
sorry.
it?
Yeah.
But there's plenty to learn on the technical side.
Sure.
I know that's part of what y'all focus on. You also focus on the softer skills and the leadership side too. But it is definitely a technical world, and it's interesting that you bring those two aspects up, Byron, because that's a challenging combination.
Oh, I mean, it is, especially as the programming director, I've got to figure out a way to make commercial lending, touchy-feely, warm kumbaya stuff, which is it's the way it's supposed to be, but sometimes the twain don't meet.
Right.
But I would, even as a numbers person, like myself, um, those soft skills and those things in my life, I guess in my path and my career, and what I've seen in my life, it, it's it's knowing who I am, the rough spots, the good spots, the good and the bad, the ugly. To me, that's been where I should have started, and and when I've seen advancements in my career, it's where I started is understanding that. And so I think, yes, the technical stuff is definitely important. Again, lender, number, Excel geek here. But if it, to say what is the most, where should you start is getting things between your ears squared away, and in your heart squared away, before you start that technical side. And that does not diminish the technical side at all.
Right. Love that. I want to come back in a minute to that, but the whole idea of we need to understand ourselves. But Chris, you tell us about your perspective.
Well, I mean, 100% to what Byron said. And when I came out of the banking school, I guess 22 years now, you know, the graduate program is really all we had. And in most of the other graduate schools, the LSUs and SMUs at the time were pretty similar, where it was just a bunch of technical stuff. How to be a better lender, marketing, asset liability management. And a trend over the last 20 or so years where it really is, we got to know ourselves before we can, be a good coach, manager, leader. And, we really, and the board afforded me this opportunity 22 years ago. And a lot of it was from the bank that I was with prior to coming, National Bank of Commerce, where they did a really good job. And we did those personality surveys and all those kinds of things. And everybody on our team did. So I knew who I was dealing with. I'm an extrovert, big time extrovert.
I hadn't noticed that about you.
And I'm going to be talking with my hands and everything.
We introverts on the call love you anyway.
I
We do,
understand.
Chris.
But that's the thing, is making sure that someone who's growing in their career, that they do understand that those personalities are entrenched. And how can I grow in a relationship, in a role with Eric, who's an introvert, who's amazing at the numbers? How can I manage that person? How can he manage me? How can we manage up and down, sideways, with all these different types of personalities? And so one of the best decisions I think we ever made was bringing in somebody by the name of Dr. Kerry Solly, who's been in the executive MBA program at LSU for 30 years. And he is known around the country for this kind of human behavior, that piece. And that is a core course that you're going to get in the grad school. And that's a basis, because then we can start building the leadership, how you delegate, how you manage, and then really change and affect culture after that. But you can't until you have that basis of understanding people and understanding what makes people tick. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest thing that I think Byron and I, with all the things that we think of, is you got to have both sides. And I go back to, you think of the most successful, and we'll take it back to sports. You asked me about baseball earlier. The most successful coaches in any sport were never the superstars. Michael Jordan would be a horrible coach. because he just assumes everybody can jump 400 feet high, dunk, and just do it.
Right. Yeah.
And the successful coaches have been the journeyman catcher. That is an amazing coach, because he's had to understand and work with the team and work with the pitching staff, because pitchers, like I was, they're not right in the head.
No.
And, so figuring that out. And so you look at that and, a lot of times, and I saw this early in my career, and I'm sure you've seen it too, those hunters and gatherers, those lenders who had the hugest portfolio, and they could just really go out and bring in the business.
Yep.
And they got promoted, and now they're managing people, and they're horrible at it because they never built those skills. And then sometimes they get pushed up into executive management, and things kind of fall apart because all they knew and what they were great at was this one thing: I'm going to go out and get the business. And so making sure that as we're growing somebody up through the accounting area, kind of like accounting and finance that you did, or somebody through the lending area, that we're helping them understand what a manager and a leader looks like, and understanding all the different teammates you're going to have.
Right.
And one other thing, I remember it was an executive at the bank I was working with. And we were one of the first banks in the country that started supermarket banking. And so that was a high sales. We're in a 300 square foot Kroger grocery store. That's where I started. And you're going to be in the aisles and you're going to be selling. And this president of the bank at the time wanted everybody to be an extrovert. And that's why we were taking these surveys and stuff. And I raised my hand one day and I said, well, sir, I appreciate that. And I would love for everybody to be a great salesperson. But if we have everybody that's worried about selling, audit, and all the other things are going to go by the wayside, there's going to be cash drawers that money's missing, and not because people have stolen.
Right.
They're just too busy talking to people, and we're not balancing. And so it was like having those conversations that you have to build this cohesive team where you have people that are great at different things, and then how do we manage them all? And I was afraid when it was coming out of my mouth talking to our president in front of a huge group of people what it may do to my career. What it did was give me more responsibility and said, well, Kristen, you're going to help train that. And I'm like, oh, great. So when you raise your hand, you get more responsibility.
I've seen that
pattern, hopefully that kind of answers your first kind of question.
It does. Couple comments on that. And first, talking about the extroverts out in the aisles selling, sometimes introverts can actually be decent in sales, and an introvert on the other side may actually prefer a little softer, less in your face, extroverted kind of approach. But the main thing that strikes me, so here we are talking about, and we're talking today about banking, but the principles here are clearly applicable in any industry, in any setting, any of our listeners, this is going to be relevant.
Yeah.
Y'all went straight to people. Fascinating. This is a very technical industry, and y'all went straight to people. And Byron, you started off with, I need to understand myself. And Chris, you went straight to, we need to understand each other as a team. Well, even the technical side, we look at everything on the balance sheet, everything on the income statement. There's a person on the other side of all that. And so that whole people perspective, I couldn't agree more. And that's definitely one of the inner motivations for somebody that's a steward, leader, is never losing sight of that reality. So I love that y'all went straight there.
Yes.
And you mentioned that and I've experienced this in my own banking graduate school. I went to a different one. I'm now getting to teach at several, looking forward to being at yours. But one of the reasons I went was I was fairly new to banking, and I knew that I got familiar with the finance side pretty fast, but I wanted to learn more about the other aspects of the bank. And I know y'all do that too.
Yes.
But to be able to couple that with leadership pieces, and I'm seeing that other various places I'm being plugged in, absolutely so necessary.
Well, and you go back to the one thing, kind of how we got introduced to each other, and it was, I think, through Deke now there in the Amarillo area, and grateful that he told us that we needed to get together. And what's been so great and about having you on board, because again, we try to bring as many different voices as we can to talk about leadership and culture and employee engagement and all those things. But a lot of times they are the extrovert like me who's doing a lot of the talking, and we may be saying a lot of similar things, but coming from a different area of the bank or a different perspective. And we've been lucky enough the last couple of years to have you on, if not each quarter, at least a few times a year, talking about leadership and culture in a different way, and really coming from the operational side, the finance side, and the infrastructure of the bank. And so those perspectives, and having the extrovert saying it one way, but the introvert may not hear it the way they should or could. So having introvert like you saying similar things, but in a different delivery, and be able to get it. And so, because I know I am not everybody's cup of tea. I'll say that when I'm in front of 100 people, and I apologize in advance. And sometimes I'm not sure what's going to come out of my mouth. I know you are probably a little bit more regimented, and you have a good list of things, and my list is here, but it's bouncing around. And that's why I think bringing so many different perspectives together and having, I mean, I love it when you go to a conference and they have similar topics, but two different types of people discussing those topics.
Yes.
Because again, the way I say it, you may not get it. The way Eric says it, it may click.
Right.
And so we're kind of touching on similar topics. I was just in New Hampshire a couple weeks ago, and I didn't really look at the list of topics until I got there, and I'm like, oh man, there's three of us going to be discussing similar stuff.
Right.
But it was all different delivery styles, and I know every single person was able to walk away with something. They may not have gotten it from me, but the two other facilitators, it may have clicked. And that's why, like, with all the different ways that we try to deliver information, podcasts that Byron's doing, webinars that we've had you on, the different quarterly webinar roundtables that we do, the graduate program, so many different voices saying a lot of the similar things, delivering them differently. Hopefully it clicks. And so, because you can't be all things to all people. And so we got to understand that. We got to know ourselves. We've got to be curious to what will make them tick. And if I know what I'm saying may not work, how Byron says it may. Right. And that's the way that I think that we have to look at it, that we can't be too proud to assume that everybody thinks I'm awesome. In my head, I think I am, but it may not work, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm observing, and those listening to this won't be able to see what is happening right now on the screen. When those of you looking at it on the video version, you just saw a very animated Chris with like 6 gestures per sentence, and Byron sitting here rocking very slowly. He would like to have a pipe in his hand if he could.
Absolutely.
I'm swatting flies that aren't here.
Eric's sitting here stock still, trying not to create a distraction. People are different, and I appreciate you bring that up. It's funny though, when my wife listens to this, she's going to say, Eric, you did it again. You regularly tell people you're an introvert, and that's ridiculous. She's a true introvert. She doesn't like me drawing attention to her. I should quit talking about her right now. But I'm kind of a little more in the middle, but I'm close enough to the introvert side that I understand some of those challenges and dynamics. And I've learned how to hang out with people like Chris, even though sometimes the energy,
too much.
There's plenty. Yeah. So anyway, that reality that we're different and that we learn from each other. And I will come back to this too. When you were talking about teams, and look at me gesturing now. When I get all passionate and excited, I start to look like Chris.
It's contagious.
Yeah. But you were talking about one of the things that happens on teams is we don't all have the same strengths. And that goes back to where you started, Byron. Part of what's important about us knowing ourselves is knowing things like what gives me energy and what drains me. Where am I on that introversion to extroversion? Where am I? Am I a detail person? Am I not? Those kinds of things are really important for us to know about ourselves so we can plug in and make a contribution where our strengths shine. Yeah. And then we surround ourselves with people who are strong where we're not.
Yeah.
I'm never going to play minor league ball. I just won't.
Right.
It's not going to happen. I don't have those strengths.
Right.
We find our strengths we grow in those, and we need to know enough about those other areas where we don't have the strengths, but we need to know ourselves, like you said, Byron, well enough that we know where, and this was a Peter Drucker thing. Know what you're strong in. Go do that.
Yeah.
Get stronger in that. Go do what you're strong in.
And I will add to, and I don't know if this is from the Peter Drucker or Good to Great perspective, but I would add, and I've seen it in banking, I would add, learn where your limits are and start pushing to where you can grow. We
Yes.
one of the things we started doing, and I'll admit it was not some big, you know, management qualitative decision that came here. Kind of got born out of necessity. But we hit a point in our students where we were getting about half and half, lender, non-lender. And as a result, there were half and half male, female, and different area, different mixes of that. But it was 50-50, 60-40 either way, year in, year out, still that way. But we're also seeing in the industry a lot more C-suite move from that's not coming from the lending side. Traditionally, very male dominated lending. The lenders, and it's usually the guy that has the biggest portfolio.
And the
That's going
biggest
to be
ego.
I didn't say that, but yeah, that's and to some extent, the rainmakers need to get fine, but that's not what we're seeing in the industry. What we run into being in community banking, having the contacts that we've had, and dealing with a lot of smaller town, lower edge, people that haven't gone to Harvard, Wharton, any of these types of schools, but they're moving on into the C-suite. You may have somebody coming from operations that's going to sit at the table who's never made a loan before. That's scary now to them, but getting them to see, yes, it's a skill set you need. You can do it. And then figuring out, well, how do you teach them? How do you teach them how to do that? Finding a facilitator to communicate. Chris was talking about two different people talking about the same different topic, but the vastly different audiences are being received different. That has been one of the really cool things that I've seen. I don't know, Chris, we've been doing the track, 6 years, something like that, 6, 7 years, something like that, that I've seen come about in applying what we're talking about here of not only knowing who you are. There's a lot of value in that. There's a reason why I answered your question like that. But part of that is knowing, like what you're saying, I'm never going to play baseball. I shouldn't have played in the first place, but I'm never going to play baseball. And there's some people that they're never going to make an ag loan. They're never going to be a CNI lender, knocking it out of the park with SBA loans. But they may still sit on loan committee.
Yes.
And they may still sit on a bank board at some point in their life. The skill set for for being just the hardcore commercial lender to sitting on the loan committee, the skill set's very similar, but there are a lot of differences there.
Yes.
And getting somebody to say, I can do this, I'm smart enough to do this, and then from mine and Chris's seat, to say, okay, here's how you're going to learn how to do this. Yeah. That has been one of, for me, Chris is shaking his head in agreement, so I'm going to assume he agrees. That has been one of the coolest things about taking where we're talking about and applying it in our industry, and it's been very fulfilling.
That's good. Two things. From conversations along the way, I know that a soft spot in your heart and also part of your audience of banks you serve is a lot of the smaller banks, a lot of the rural banks, and the needs there are so different. I mean, a loan is a loan, a balance sheet is a balance sheet, but the scale can make a real difference operationally and in how it touches people. Money center bank versus $200 million bank in the middle of a rural area. They're both making loans, but in the smaller one, you've got people that are covering more areas and aren't as specialized. And so one of the things that's really powerful is being able to develop some more of those generalist skills some more understanding of the adjacencies. So being a finance person and living most of my life in the back office, back support function, I see often those connections of, hey, what's going on here affects my group this way. What's going on in finance affects this group this way. And the more we can understand about each other, I'm never going to be a good lender. But the more I can understand about lending, the better I can support my internal customers who are taking care of our external customers. And so that kind of learning that y'all provide, and there's a lot of that self-development that people can do. There's a lot of that just happens with collaborative conversations inside the bank. But having a mindset to go do that can be really powerful.
Well, and to add to something to that, when I first came into the banking school, and you had to have a certain amount, if you were gonna enroll, you had to have a certain amount of years in banking. You need to have a college degree and all those things. And then I started questioning that, and I had a few board members, especially from very rural areas. And as we know, with industries that have left, textile mills or whatever, leaving, going overseas,
right.
you've lost some of the money, some of the people in some of these smaller towns. And I've had conversations with CEOs, and we really kind of took that out. And I don't, this is not an ivory tower graduate school of banking. You may have that someplace else. That's not us, because I think we have listened to the executives of these, smaller community banks that you're talking of that are in rural North Dakota, that are 2 hours from an airport that can take them to a bigger airport that can take them then to Memphis to training.
You're describing the Texas Panhandle. A lot
exactly,
of the
100%.
Right.
The
I've
airport
had
tire
family
center
in the Amarillo area. I've seen those cars buried in the ground, and I've seen somebody eat that 72-ounce steak there on the highway there in Amarillo. It was awful.
Yes.
I was playing minor league baseball in Amarillo, and the guy's like, I can eat that 72-ounce steak. He was our starting catcher. He couldn't catch the next day because he tried to eat that thing. See, another story I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. But in talking with these executives, and that's kind of changed how high touch Byron and I are or try to be, is that in some of these markets, they don't have the talent on paper that they have a college degree, they have an MBA, and having conversations with them, and they're like, Chris, I know this person is going to struggle. They've got a year of college, maybe. They worked at the Dollar General,
Right.
but they're going to be loyal, and they will be with us forever. They're not going to move out of our community. Can you help them get through the 3-year banking school? Every assignment that they do is probably going to be a struggle, but I see something in them. I think we can build them. I'm not going to have an MBA walking through the door that's going to be coming to the bank. Can you help me? And I think that's where Byron and I, where we come from. I'm from Lower Alabama. I am from Andalusia, Alabama. You talked about the Texas Panhandle, Redneck Riviera, that Florida Alabama Panhandle.
Right.
Byron, who multi-generational farming families just like mine, multi-generational banking family, but in the Mississippi Delta, same kind of thing, which has seen, it kind of depressed now versus what it may have been, 50 years ago. And knowing the audience, and that maybe they just haven't gotten a chance, and they're going to flourish, but they're going to need some hand-holding. And I think that's what is probably the most rewarding for Byron and I, to see these folks coming in that on paper shouldn't have a chance at this. But then we get in with the right people and our facilitators. And I know you're one of those that, look, Eric, this person's going to struggle. They may ask you a bunch of questions. Can you be available? And that's the only kind of facilitators we're going to have, because if you're too high in your head that you can't help, then we don't want you. And that's, you talking about the steward leadership stuff, is that, and if we can't help, the Main Street versus Wall Street, if we can't help those Main Street banks, those folks on the town square, keep those local communities vibrant, then what are we here for? Right. Because the big banks are not going to come into some of those small panhandle towns and help them survive. And so how can we help them, one assignment at a time, one class at a time, one podcast at a time, one, our webinar with you at a time to figure this stuff out. And so that's where I go. One of our board members, Danny Kelley, had said this on a podcast that we did, and it's being relevant in your presence. And if we could be relevant in our presence, in these conversations, in these one-on-one opportunities, and I will say this, I've not always been that way with my wife and kids. Somebody comes into your office, not shutting the laptop, not putting the phone away. You're sort of looking at them, but you're sort
distracted like Byron is right now, looking under his desk.
He's heard this. He and I, yeah. But being relevant in that moment,
right,
and realizing that the people that are coming to our program that are listening, we need to give them everything we got when they're with us. If it's a short conversation, or if it's a week-long class. And so I think that's Byron and I feel that same way. Ashley, who works with us, will kind of kick us in the backside if we're not doing that, because she is a very empathetic person as well. Right. And so that's kind of what we strive for. We fail a lot, but the want to is there, and we're going to continue to check each other if we're not doing that.
I love that. I want to pivot. You talked about it. We could talk all week or a short conversation. We're going to have a short conversation today. We could talk all week. This is a rich topic with lots and lots of application, lots of principles. You brought it up just a minute ago, and the title of this whole show is Steward Leaders. It's about us as steward leaders. I believe stewardship is the essential to effective leadership, my perspective. Mm-hmm. So how does a stewardship perspective come into play for a banker, for a leader in banking? Y'all think about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, there's obviously the you are, as a lender, you are lending somebody else's money. The board has hired you or management has hired you, who's hired by the board, to go and lend other people's money out at interest and at a spread, and and do it legally and ethically and according to the bylaws, the regulations. Okay, so I mean, there's obviously there's a stewardship part of it. Ain't my money. Right. It's not even necessarily ownership's money. It is your local community. It's the baker. It's the shoemaker and the cobbler down the street. It's everybody's money that you're lending for, and I'm not being dismissive of that. That's a big responsibility when you really kind of boil it down. That's a big responsibility. One of the things that I teach, I'm an adjunct professor here at Christian Brothers University, teach the banking minor. I tell my students this: banking, and I use your words, Eric, you are a steward over the financial representation of your local community's blood, sweat, and tears. Where do you put your paycheck? I know where I put mine. It's in the bank. I mean, I love Chris. We have a good time. We hang out, but I mean, he pays me a paycheck, and I work hard to earn it. You don't believe me.
And you put it in the bank.
And I put it in the bank.
And they're a steward of your funds.
And they're a steward of my money. And that's important to me. Where I bank, now I know I'm in the industry and I'm supposed to say that, but in reality, in these small towns, we've been there. You are guardian over their information, their paychecks. They look to you, and I'm not compliance people, listen to me. I'm not saying doing things when you're not licensed, but the reality is people ask you questions about what they do with their money. What do you think about this? You've got to watch yourself on lender liability and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you hold a sacred, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, you hold a sacred responsibility and a sacred duty to your local community and people that know that you're a banker. I think it's the Dutch that make the bankers speak to and sign a very, very stringent code of ethics before they are allowed to work in a bank. Maybe we need to think about that. But when you think about what stewardship is, it's not just, it's a job. It's you are holding something sacred and personal to a whole lot of people. To put it bluntly, that you see a whole lot. It's not just the fund managers in New York. It's your deacons at church, your whoever, all
The teachers got your kids in school, the ones you run into in the aisle at the grocery store, the ones you're sitting to in the, yeah.
absolutely. And to even take it another level, because you are good as a banker, you are good at financial intermediate. Now I'm getting animated. You are good at financial intermediation. You ought to see my lectures. Because you are good at this, being the intermediary between net savers and net borrowers. That's the only way that rural or urban, that local communities and economic development happens. That's how the houses get built, the stores get opened, the payrolls get fixed, the highways, blah, 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 blah. If you're a banker, you are in charge and you are in that process making economic development happen. And if that doesn't humble you, scare you, and thrill you, then this may not be the industry for you, but there is a level of stewardship that comes with that I wish I could just get into every banker, and we do our best to hammer that into them. That's what we're talking about. And that's what it means to me when we talk about steward leadership.
If only, Chris, if only he was a little bit passionate about what he's involved in here. And Chris, Byron, what were those 3 verbs? Need to be.
Oh gosh, you killed it. That was a spur of the moment thing, Eric.
Yeah, that was a powerful combination. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this again, but stewardship is that bundle of, it is exciting, but it is really sobering.
It's got to humble you. It's got to humble, drill you, and scare you. I mean, to some extent. I mean, I think that's
a good combination. Love that.
Yeah, it's got to do all 3 of those, and that when anything, your faith walk, your faith journey, your career, whatever that may be, if those 3 things are there, that's when you cross the line into stewardship. Like, there is a responsibility laid on your shoulders to do the right thing and do the right thing by people. And that's kind of what keeps me here. Other than Chris.
Well, speaking of Chris, and I want to let you have the near final word on this. The danger of asking both of you questions you're passionate about is trying to keep this in the allotted time frame, but you go. Chris, you talk a little bit.
Well, okay, so I asked AI for a steward leadership definition. And so a purpose-driven approach where leaders act as caretakers, and we talked about you're that caretaker of resources, of people, the organization. And then here's the thing, prioritizing long-term sustainability.
Yes.
Not the short-term gain. And the collective good. Not just me being good at my job, me and my branch doing well, me and my office, but how can I help the entire organization be stronger? And so that the collective good over personal short-term goals.
Yes.
So I think, we have to think that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. I think in human nature, for the most part, we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And I think if we look at steward leadership that way, that yes, I need to be good personally at the tasks, at the things that I'm supposed to do, but then how can I, as part of a team, make us stronger? The 2 and 2 equals 5 kind of thing. Can I do that? Am I setting myself up for that success? Am I making sure that I've got great people around me that can help me be better, that can check me? The checks and balances, and Ashley and Byron in our office are that for me. My wife is that for me. Sometimes you don't want to hear it from your spouse, but if you're truly listening, normally it's going to be stuff that you need to hear. And so I think of just that collective good, that yes, I can do this one task and I can do it well, but how does that fit into the bigger picture? How can I help the people around me to be better at what they do? And then will it all, the rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing? Can we all get to that point? And I think that's where us and what we try to do here is trying to find that balance in an authentic way, an empathetic way, because we realize there are all kinds of things that may happen. And again, people coming to us realize that they have a family and that they have civic duties. They're getting paid, like Byron was just talking about, they're getting paid by their bank. So those are priorities. But how can we help them in that free time, spare time, or the time they're with us to improve them so all those things they're better at? Right. And so that time with us is fleeting, but how can we make it worthwhile for them? And that's what I think we try to do. I think we do it fairly well. Could we always do better? Yes. That's why we bring on folks like you to help us in areas that maybe we're not great at. So,
yeah. Well, I'm honored for the opportunities where y'all ask me to come talk to folks, and I know your passion for these topics and for helping the folks grow, which is why I wanted to have this conversation today. I want to tie on to one key thing you said in there, Chris, about as a steward, the time horizon is so significant.
Yeah.
I may be in a leadership role that, the community bank I was at, I was there nearly 10 years. I was in the CFO seat for 8 of those years. Very fruitful time, very rewarding, but it was a duration and it's over. I'm now in a different role. All of us as leaders, that leadership role will come to an end. But what I'm doing in my stewardship, sometimes it's about immediate needs, but it's always with the perspective of what's the long term here. And that long term can be really long. Byron, you were talking about you put your paycheck in the bank. Well, you're probably putting some of that in retirement too. That's a long horizon. Whoever's stewarding that for you needs to be stewarding it with that long horizon in view. And it's a big deal.
It is.
Well, so, I think too, and I know we're up against the time, but I think too, with what Chris was saying, we all want to be something bigger than ourselves. Some of that has a long-term,
yes, it does,
extremely long-term / eternal perspective on that. That every human being wants to do something that matters.
Right.
Now, banking may not be the most, at least at the surface, the most rewarding thing. But when you start thinking about helping people get that first house, first car, first business, all that, that has an extremely long term, and that's why it's got to be important. And that's got to humble you, the weight of that. And that's why banking and stewardship to me just go so naturally together.
Well, back to where you started, Byron, people, it's all about people, and people are eternal creatures. And so our involvement with them in their lives, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And Eric, if I can add one thing, because I know the type of person that you are, and it hit me. And I usually finish a lot of the presentations that I'll do on leadership and culture and stuff like that with this one mantra that is part of the Christian Brothers University, and really the Lasallian brothers that created the Christian Brother Order that were teachers.
Right.
And they put these stickers. And
that's the university is the sponsor of the Barret School.
Yeah.
We're on campus at Christian Brothers University, lease office space and classrooms, and they've been great partners for us in doing all the programming we do. But on the door of every building, when you enter and exit, it says 2 things. When you're entering, a sticker that says "Enter to learn." When you're exiting, it says "Leave to serve."
Leave to serve.
And that really, when they put it up about Byron, I'm trying to think if it was there before you and Ashley came, but it's been 8-9 years.
They just put it up when we started 7-8 years ago.
And really, like a speed limit sign. The first few times I saw it, it didn't really, enter my head. And then one day, because sometimes listening, you have to be at the right spot to hear something, to see something. And seeing that, and then that relevancy of your presence that Danny Kelley talked about in this, that if you can, in every conversation like this that we're having, one-on-one or in front of a group, I got something to learn because I can add to my presentation. I can maybe say something different. I can introduce them to someone else that may be a better fit.
Yes,
but entering every conversation, entering every opportunity with a chance to learn something. And then once I've learned it, how can I serve others? My kids, my family, the folks that I worked with, the people that we're trying to teach. And so entering to learn, leaving to serve, trying to think of that when I can, check myself when I'm getting too big for my britches, and think of that and just boil it down to something simple. And it gets me every time. And I try to be present when I'm entering and leaving the building to see that every time.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Chris and Byron, thanks again for taking time for today's conversation. There's lots here for all of us as steward leaders to be thinking about. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, buddy.
Anytime, Eric. We truly appreciate the relationship.
Thanks for listening to Steward Leaders. If this conversation was helpful, you can find more episodes and additional resources at stewardleaderspodcast.com. Leadership is temporary. Stewardship is about forever.